What's up, everybody? Jack Farr here on behalf of Box to Box Football. I'm here with James and Newcastle fans. Toon Army, you got a Premier League title coming in the next 5 years, I think, because the richest football owners in the sport, I think, have just bought your football club. Now, James and I have always had the opinion that, Newcastle United, kind of like Leeds, kind of like a lot of these other kind of old school English teams, that they're sleeping giants in many, many ways. There's a lot of passion, a lot of history, deep-rooted English footballness about them, and that they're just waiting for the opportunity to explode. And Newcastle United are about to exercise that. £300 million deal to get Mike Ashley, who realistically has been one of the more toxic owners in football, out of the football club. But you've potentially brought in somebody who's 20, 30, 40 times more toxic than Mike Ashley, with some of the history behind what some of the Saudis have done. James and I know this all too well with Crown Jewel and the WWE having relations with these guys. However, it's not technically Saudi Arabia that have taken over the Newcastle club. It is a company called a public investment fund, which is obviously kind of the shell, let's say, for the Saudi Arabia ownership. Now, the Saudi Arabia ownership, the ones that are involved in the public investment fund, they have money and have supported the likes of Disney, Uber, Facebook, and Starbucks. So we're not talking about some small company that's just sprouted out of nowhere. This is still kind of a major player in the game. But obviously, James and I just wanted to come here. What does this mean for Newcastle United? And also, is this something that we're going to be welcoming, or something that we should look at a little bit more skeptical, a little bit more cynical about it? James, first of all, what I wanted to ask you, because I think we'll differ on this ever so slightly, what's your initial reaction to the idea that this PIF, which is basically Saudi Arabia coming in to take over Newcastle?
I think the ironic thing is that I go onto social media and I see Man City fans and Chelsea fans pointing the finger saying, you can't do this. I'm like, what? Who? You guys are talking. But do you know what it is? It's football. It's football, yeah. Me being an Arsenal fan, I have a dream of Arsenal winning the league one day, and with Newcastle obviously having this big investment, it becomes a little bit harder, but I welcome it. I welcome it because I've always been a fan of Newcastle. I've been a fan for like a while now. There was a time around 2008 where they were my third favorite team. But I'm happy for Newcastle because they're a team. They have over 52,000 in their stadium. They sell it out week in and week out. Such a passionate fan base, and I'm happy for them. And to me, the best thing for these guys, is that they can get some stability. Because when Mike Ashley, it just felt like it was just sucking and draining the life out of them. Generally, I don't wish Mike Ashley as an owner on any team. Right. Because what he's done to this Newcastle team has been horrendous. For Newcastle in the last, 15 years to have 2 relegation seasons is horrendous for a team as big as Newcastle. Now, I'm not on this thing of Newcastle like this big club. I'm like, because you look at Europe, they ain't that big. A lot of people talk about Leeds, they're a big club. Look, when compared to the rest of Europe, they're not that big. Arsenal are a big club. Chelsea are a big club. Man United are a big club. When it comes to England, Newcastle and what they've done in the past few years, yeah, they're considered a big club because we look at the Alan Shearers. But I'm just happy that these guys can get the stability and stop going up and down, becoming a bit of a yo-yo club. And to me, for Newcastle, I don't think it's a thing about, they're going to challenge for the league straight away. Because in my eyes, people need to relax with that. Yes, money comes in, but if Newcastle, let me just give you a great example right now. If Newcastle has a player right now who is tearing up the Premier League, are you telling me that he still wouldn't want to get a move to Manchester United or Chelsea or whatever? I don't care how much money they have. This is going to be a process. And people say 5 years. I think 5 years is to me way too short. They're not going to do nothing in 5 years. This might be a 10, 15-year status, because when Man City had their big spend and everything like that, and then they bought the club or whatever, they bought Robinho.
Elano,
Elano was already there. Elano was already there, but when they bought Robinho. Man City were technically the only side who them and Chelsea and Man United were only big teams who really spent money. Arsenal's record deal was like I think 16 million for like Andre Arshavin. It took to 2014 for Arsenal to break that record. Liverpool only broke the 30 million pound barrier when they signed Andy Carroll in 2011.
Right.
So I want you to understand like teams didn't spend the way that they were spending back then, but now I get Newcastle have money, but the financial status of all the clubs is very high. So because no matter how much money they have, they're gonna take time to compete, you know. But yeah.
I think in 5 years we're looking at a top 6 finish within 5 years. I really, really do.
Fair enough.
I think that, like, don't get me wrong. I think a title is maybe 15 years off. You might be right with that, but I think a top 6, maybe even a Champions League finish in 5 years is not to be underestimated. The one thing I think that screams to me about these guys is, and you look at the comparison with the Man City owners, with the rest of the American ownership for Liverpool, Manchester United, that kind of thing. Even with a titan like Roman Abramovich, it's embarrassing for some of these other owners, James. Actually, the amount of money they have, it's embarrassing. I look at the fact that I think they'll be somewhat impatient. I think there'll be a certain level of immediate gratification that comes along with it, and I think that any opportunity for them to operate within the laws that have been set in place, that they'll be there to come up. Now, the thing I think is most fascinating, in my opinion, is how UEFA and how the British FA, English FA, operate with these people. Because what happens a lot of the times, the big names which they have the intellectual property of, the Manchester Uniteds, Chelsea's, Man City's, Arsenal's, Liverpool's, these big clubs that draw a lot of eyes and a lot of attention. Not to say Newcastle aren't that, but these guys are a few rungs above. If Newcastle United step out of line, I'm interested to see what the punishment looks like, because they're going to want the money to come in. And the reason why I'm so pleased personally with the foreign ownership coming in, with all this money coming in, it's going to put infrastructure into Newcastle United as a Premier League football team, into the stadium. With the money that they spend, it will eventually, it's proven at this point, it filters its way down. Championship, League One, League Two. That's how it works. So for me, all this extra money coming into our game, it's beneficial for all the clubs. What I'm interested in is when they inevitably step out of line, because James, we know a couple of examples, which we may or may not bring up. I'll leave that up to you, about this club doing this ownership and the people behind this ownership doing some pretty hateable things. And obviously what's going to be fascinating for me, when they inevitably step out of line, like we've seen Man City do, like we've seen Chelsea do, like we've seen the other examples of this do in the past, what's it going to be? Are you going to get a Birmingham situation where you deduct 8 points and you give them a big fine? Or is it going to be a Man City situation where it's kind of a slap on the wrist and, oh, you naughty boys, don't do that again? Because actually the punishment is way higher, but they're scared of losing the power and the draw of Manchester City from the competitions which make them all the money.
I feel like it's different. I feel like Man City and Chelsea were able to do it in times when financial fair play wasn't, like, we talked about it, but it wasn't that focused on.
Right.
Yeah, because Man City doing it in the early 2010s, when they were spending, they were buying all these players, Negredo, like Jovic, all these type of guys. Newcastle are in a time right now where financial fair play has already took a big hit, and as you said, they're waiting to make a big example of a team one of these days. And Newcastle, with all that money they have, once they do step in line, I do believe that they'll look at them. Okay, we don't want to do it to Man City because they're quite big right now.
Right.
But we can definitely do it to Newcastle because people won't really care as much in the big scope of things. They don't really affect them financially.
I think what's scary though is lots of the legal system. I'm no lawyer, you guys. I didn't do it at college, didn't do it at uni. Like, I'm no lawyer, but I know one big part of the legal system is precedents, right? So, and by precedents, for people listening who may not know what that means, it's just stuff that has come beforehand, which is similar, so that then when it's kind of then reflected on a new circumstance, you go back to the history books and show, well, here's what happened when something like this happened before, so that's what should happen again. What scares me, I think, James, is they could make the same mistakes and legally they can argue, well, they kind of did something similar back then, so the same issue should now be placed on us, the same punishment should be placed to us. Now, we don't think that's fair, but I think legally they would have certainly a huge right to say that that's probably the fairest outcome possible, unless UEFA makes some changes.
I feel like it's going to be an interesting one. I do feel like Newcastle are going to have to take this step by step and not go gun-ho straight away. But for me, I don't even think that they can go gun-ho.
Quickly,
you know?
Quickly, with financial fair play in the state it's in, over the next season, without penalty, they can spend £225 million.
But £225 million, but also, Jack, you must understand how this is going to go, because usually 225 million can get you a whole bunch of players, but you know how much 225 million can get you nowadays. It can get you an average football player for
get you Harry Kane.
A stupid amount. You know? Listen, for all we know, Harry Kane is not even worth that.
Harry Kane and Jack Grealish, and you're out.
Listen, but now teams know that Newcastle have this sort of money.
Right.
It boosts everything up. So a player who's worth 25, 30, maybe with English tax, maybe 40, it might be a 60 for Newcastle right now. So I think it looks good for them. The money looks good, but this to me is going to take a time in the process. And also the caliber of players that they can buy. It's people I'm seeing this thing about they can get Mbappes and Erling Haalands and all this type of stuff. They are not going to compete to get these players in the next 25 years.
We'll get to that in a second. What I do want to just ask you quickly, one of the major criticisms, and I think it comes from the phrase of money laundering, but it's called sport washing. And the idea is that, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, human rights abuses over the last however many years. And what they do is they put a lot of money and a lot of effort and investment in the world's most beloved sport, so that in terms of a public relations point of view, they can be, shone a little brighter light on, as opposed to being just hated all the time. How much do you think this was motivated by that sports washing, by that idea that, hey, if we get into football, maybe people will let go of some of the human rights stuff which we abused from before?
Jack, I don't think that. I feel like they look at football and they see what is there. And ultimately, I look at the Man City owners, they ultimately want to take over football.
Right.
And I believe it starts with teams like Newcastle, like Man City, let's be honest, they were nothing before these guys took over. And look what look where they are now. I feel like they want.
Quickly, I just want to ask you, because you mentioned like these big players not wanting to go to Newcastle for that period of time. It's taken Man City about 10, 15 years to have the Kevin De Bruyne's of the world and, Edison and, all these kind of bigger name players. Do you not think that actually it might be a shorter period of time that Newcastle might be able to attract these names?
But Jack, you must understand where you're at with this, because when Man City signed these players, how sought after are they? Was Kevin De Bruyne that sought after when they signed them?
Well, I think was he not Bundesliga Player of the Year? I think he was.
He was Bundesliga, but teams weren't after him the way they did. They were. David Silva, as great as he was, teams weren't after him. Aguero might be a little bit different, but it wasn't like, oh, we need him straight away. Man City have never went. When you actually look at it, they've never really went toe to toe with a team for a top with a big team for a top player. They haven't really done that. They've looked around and found players who fit what they need and then went for them. I haven't seen them going for an Mbappe or a Messi or whatever. They've gone with the
Did they go for Messi?
They've gone with the guys who are good, but not as sought after. And I feel like that's where Newcastle are going to look. And not even at that level. They're going to have to maybe look around 2-3 levels below that, for them to just...
So let me ask you then, because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I think you and I might be along the similar lines. And just for people listening, what I've kind of tasked James to do, and also tasked myself to do, is just a couple of names who might be on the market over the next 18 months, who you think might be interested in joining the Newcastle United project. And James, have you got a couple of names for us?
Yeah, to me there's a few. Now, I don't expect people to be saying all the crazy names, Harry Kane's, your Erling
Right.
Haaland's, your Mbappe's. That's not gonna happen. That won't happen for another 25 to 30 years. And even then it's gonna be them guys are gonna be retired by then. This is going to be a process. But what Newcastle have right now is that they can look at teams like Everton, they can look at teams like even Tottenham and times, like, okay, we can go toe to toe with you for a
Right.
player, even Arsenal maybe. And it's players like, I look at Anthony Martial.
Yeah,
That
he
would
was
be
on
a
my
good
list.
that would be a good destination for him. Small, big player, small pawn kind of works out for him. I've seen Lacazette there. Felipe Coutinho from Barcelona.
Another one I
I don't
thought
think he
of.
would leave Barcelona, but I look at Newcastle and where Newcastle are right now. The fit would be brilliant there. For him, a player like an Aaron Ramsey, Renato Sanchez would be
Yep.
a great offer. Max Aarons. To me, is Newcastle just about filling up the squad and poking holes in areas that they need to fill.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
You know?
The only other kind of I agree with Martial, I agree with Coutinho. Those are both players I thought of. I thought of, and I think I saw this in the BBC Sport rumours column as well. Donny van de Beek. Talk about a player who would love a fresh start and to be adored by a fan base. I think that would be a great move for him. But I agree with you. I think it's that one tier below when we're talking about the top talent. So will they get Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland? No. But will they get Alexander Isak and will they get Dusan Vlahovic? Maybe, because there's going to be enough of a pull there in terms of a financial reward for them, enough of an upside to maybe see Newcastle United as a stepping stone club if they can be successful there. And depending on how the success is short term, maybe you stay there and you get the domestic titles and the European titles that maybe you'd think are unlikely, but maybe there's a chance. So I think there's enough of a pull for that, just to one or two rungs below the truly elite talent.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned titles. Newcastle, the league is more in sight. I feel like the Champions League is so far off because Man City and Chelsea have shown you have to go hell for leather to get your hands on the Champions League. Right. I feel like people say Newcastle win the Champions League in the next 15 years, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how much money you have. The Champions League.
The one thing I will say, though, James, how long have the Man City ownership been in that? And where were they before? Now we're talking about them, maybe not as a favourite, but they've been there or thereabouts for about 3 or 4 years.
No, but Jack, you must understand that it took Man City when they first properly got into the Champions League in 2012. Yeah, and bear in mind they were Premier League champions every second year or so. Jack, they were struggling to get out of the group stage.
But when you say
the pedigree in the league is different to the pedigree in Europe.
But when you say the whole thing about you're crazy if you think they'll get it within that time period, there are current examples. Even Chelsea, when Roman Abramovich came in, it's the same thing. The time period is a lot shorter than what you're suggesting.
But Jack, you must understand, Chelsea had a lot more credibility under the bank. Like, people act like Chelsea won the UEFA Cup and everything like that, the Super Cup, Cup Winners' Cup. They were competing at at a level. The year before Roman Abramovich came, or so, I think the first year where he didn't really get to implement himself as much, they made it to a semi-final of a Champions League, Jack. Right before even Jose Mourinho came in. So Chelsea were always competing at that level, and they were always up there. Man City generally came from nothing. They came from a relegation battle, playing in a championship.
Yeah, Newcastle's only silverware over the last 10, 15 years has been 2 championship titles because they've had to come back up from the league they got relegated.
I feel like it's 2 completely different things. When you talk Chelsea, were always a team who were always challenging. Man City, the struggles that they faced to even get to that first Champions League final was immense. Like, you look at even the recent years, the fact that they were getting beaten against Tottenham and Monaco. These guys are not big European giants like that, but Europe is, to me, a different ballgame.
So, James, it's the 11th of October, 2021. The 11th of October, 31. Do Newcastle United have a Premier League title, a Champions League title, a couple FA Cups, Carabao Cups, top 4 finishes, top 6s? What do you think the next 10 years looks like for this football club?
I believe you got maybe a few FA Cups and the League Cup titles in there, maybe a Europa League title if they do well. Premier League title, I think, is going to be so tough looking at how far ahead these 4 teams are in the Premier League right now and how set they are for the future. But I feel like you mentioned it before, establishing themselves as a top 6 side in the next 5 to 10 years to me would be a huge thing, because you can finish in top 6 one season, but can you do it consecutively, and can you challenge them and become a big 4, big 5, big 6, big 7, whatever you want to say? So no Champions League. Premier League, I think no, not yet. But they can get a League Cup. I mean, they can get FA Cup, League Cup, and maybe a Europa League if they're super lucky. Right. But
I hate to say this, but I think I totally agree with you. I don't think a top 4 finish is out of the woods yet. And what I would say to you is, and I know that people watching are probably absolutely sick of me and James talking about this guy like this, but guys, if you see Antonio Conte out there on the market and your current manager is Steve Bruce, and you can tell Antonio Conte will pay you whatever you want and you'll have 225 million to spend this year, yeah, sign that man up. I think that might be a good idea. That might give you a quick little head start for your attempts of winning a Premier League title in the next 20 years. It's an interesting one. There's going to be a lot of controversy around it, but not stuff that we haven't seen before from the likes of, as James has mentioned, a Roman Abramovich, Man City ownership, PSG ownership, American ownership. Man, there's a lot of baggage there as well. James, anything else from you?
Newcastle fans, be happy. I'm happy the fact that you guys can get your club back. Mark actually really destroyed the perspective of how big this Newcastle team is. Just want them to just be consistent in the Premier League right now and have top 10 finishes first of all.
And just quickly, the latest rumours are Mike Ashley might potentially be looking at buying Derby County, so we might have not gotten rid of him yet. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please drop a like on the video if you like what we've seen here. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more. Turn the bell on. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think as well. We're on the road to 500 subscribers, trying to get there. We sometimes do live streams, all that kind of stuff. Bunch of other videos upload, multiple times a week. So get at us. But until next time, we'll see you.